Hello and welcome to the Weekly Wrap. My name is Lucas Miller and I'm joined with my co-host,
Jacob Mack.
And boy, are we excited. This is the first ever video podcast. We're actually able to talk to, all of you guys, see each other. And we're in the nicest studio I've ever really been in. We are on the up and up, but we are hitting you guys with a banger for the first ever video podcast. I do want to say, how are you feeling, Jacob?
I'm feeling great. And yeah, I just want to talk about news surrounding the Weekly Wrap. We'll be on 99.1 WIOX. We're going to be going live 4 to 5 p.m. on Mondays. It's going to be really exciting. We're just going to keep driving out more content. We're going to be vodcasting now, which is exciting. Try to figure out how to post videos on Spotify, which we haven't done yet, but just a lot more in store for you guys. So we're both very excited. And I'm feeling great. I'm feeling great, honestly. Talking about J. Cole and the lead up to the fall off. It's February 6th, one of the biggest releases in hip-hop right now. It's very anticipated. It's been an album in the works for over a decade now, so it can only be great.
We're talking about J. Cole's discography. We thought for the first ever video podcast, we want to do something short, sweet, but to the point. We're talking about J. Cole, all things J. Cole, and we're talking about his discography. What has he really done over the time period of being an artist, and what could he work on if he's this near perfect artist, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But I do want to ask, Jacob, do you want the floor to talk about the first studio album J. Cole ever released?
That would be Cole World, The Sideline Story. That would be in 2011. We're going to be bringing it back 15 years ago. And this is when J. Cole had been initially signed to Roc Nation under Jay-Z. He worked with Jay-Z on the album. And honestly, this is a really big moment because he had a trilogy of really successful mixtapes leading up to this as well. And it kind of establishes his sound going forward. And honestly, I don't have that many complaints about this album. I'm going to be so honest. I really enjoyed this one. It talks about a lot of the struggle coming up into fame and everything. He gets really intimate with his relationships and he really gets personal on this album, really exposing himself early in his career. And that's kind of hard for artists to do that early on. So it's really interesting to see how J. Cole's roots really started with this. And you can really see that come to fruition in his later career.
No, I have nothing but agreement on that one. I mean, if this was going to be the first ever album J. Cole's going to release, this is when he gets his roots down. And he talks so much about his own life. It just makes everything, so much more passionate. One thing I wanted to say about this one is the intro is so ambitious, and it's hungry. It's like it's trying to get its claws into this huge music realm. Obviously J. Cole's coming up with a lot of other artists at this time that you already talked about. And the outro is just realizing how much, success that he can honestly get from this. The set of mixtapes that we honestly did see for the time was revolutionary. I mean, J. Cole has his own presence. He has his own voice. And for, obviously his discography, this one being the first one was just him, getting started as an artist. And so you get a lot of, rookie talent energy in this first album. You get a lot of him searching for his direction, and so that's one thing I noted. Obviously, you're going to have some key songs off this album.
It's amazing.
The likes of which I said, Lights Please, Workout, and Lost Ones have to be my top ones off that album. But Jacob, what did you think?
Yeah, honestly, it's an anthemic album. It's
very wow.
It's okay. It's explosive.
It's his anthem.
It really is just, again, that hunger you can really feel throughout the whole thing. But the intro leading right up to Dollar and a Dream 3. And Dollar and a Dream was is a series of songs that he had released in his mixtapes as well. So seeing that lead up to this is really cool as well. But I can't get enough of the choruses, his interpolations of older songs on this is amazing.
Going into Born Sinner, released in 2013, it is so conflicted and defiant. There's so many great samples in this whole album. I think the lights of which is The Art of Storytelling by Outkast, which I gotta say, The Art of Storytelling Part 1 is one of the most incredible pieces of work in all of rap history. J. Cole, although it was a little strange at first, was able to kind of lyrically go over that song, was so cool. But But the impression that I got about it is, it's fully embracing the ideas of like sin, ego, spirituality, and it's really more of his foundation. I think this was a perfect kind of cutaway from the first ever album, and I don't think he could have done it better himself.
I just want to know about Born Sinner. Just it feels way more refined. Obviously, he's kind of escaping that mixtape era of his own sound, but Born Sinner has so much material, and it's such a huge album for what it is. He really experiments with so many different sounds, and again, like breaking away from that older sound that he came up with. We have Sparks Will Fly, we have New York Times, we have Villuminati. Just some of those are just some standouts in my opinion, but I can't get enough of this album. Every time I go back, it's like, why am I not listening to this more, The skits throughout got the religious undertones throughout, which I always love in albums. And, it's got the Kearney sermon skit, and then the Where's Jermaine going right into Forbidden Fruit, and then him and Kendrick kind of going back and forth here and there is really interesting. And it's, you don't see that ever, which is crazy. 2023, talking about the big three and everything, and seeing some of these guys working together back in the day, it doesn't seem like it should exist at all.
What he was able to do on this, having Kendrick Lamar, also when he was kind of coming up, and, the idea that he's using all of these skits, all this religious undertone, and at the time, it wasn't a played out idea. Obviously, we still have artists like A$AP Rocky recently that we talked about that have skits, have this religious undertone, and other artists that we have, talked about on this show. But it's so cool to think that, it was still like a somewhat fresh idea that J. Cole was working with. And so more of what you're seeing from him is obviously it's more like a studio, it's a commercial success, but it's still experimental enough in the industry. So 2014 was a legendary year for J. Cole. He released Forest Hill Drives with some key songs being January 28th, Wet Dreams, No Role Models, and Love Yours, which if you're a J. Cole fan, you often find yourself going back to this album at least 10 times a day. Instead of going off of the idea that, he's going to try to switch it up, he's going to try to do something new, it's still that reflective kind of piece that we got. He is so good about, talking about other artists' egos without like dissing. He's big in the idea of peace over external validation. All is very cohesive. I would say this album, out of anyone, is good about not having skips, and everything kind of plays into the next song.
Groundbreaking. Storytelling-wise, he gets... Each song actually just tells entire different stories at different parts of this. It's his gritty, true roots that he kind of goes back to again. And another note is there are no features on this album. That's another thing that's like amazing about this, because he was able to do this himself. This was mostly in isolation when he recorded this, and this was really just honing in on who he is as a person, as an artist, and like you said, going back to his childhood roots. I don't know what else you would want from this album. I mean, we even got the deluxe, so I guess we got desserts from it,
I like that saying. So I mean, just thinking the fact that, after all of this time, he's still thinking about the diehard Forest Hill Drive fans, and he's cooking it up, he's releasing it because he knows the fans love it.
But with that, you get the 10-year anniversary, 2014, but then you get the 3 mixtapes that made him successful back in the day, put on Spotify after them not being there for so many different years. So I think it's really cool. We're really able to look back at his history and his career going into his final project. So I really think that this evolution is really, really cool to see.
And I think another thing for most artists is you can take most major album releases and you can look at an artist dead in the eyes and you could say, this album's rushed. Like, you were doing this just for the hype and everything like that. You cannot say that about this last one. The amount of time that he's spent on this final album is absurd. And so it has high expectations, but honestly, J. Cole at this point knows the formula. And so we'll see. We'll see if he really switches it up, which switching it up into our next album, we're talking about For Your Eyes Only, released in 2016. You got some bangers. I especially... when I first started listening to J. Cole, this first song I ever listened to was Neighbors, which is crazy for me.
That's a fun one to be
I
put
listened to
onto.
Neighbors, I listened to Change, I listened to For Your Eyes Only, and that were my favorites off this album.
I love Change, honestly.
Yeah.
There's so many good hits on this.
It's crazy, you know, because before this I wasn't really like a big J. Cole person. I'm big into Kendrick. I got my Kendrick Fridays, I'm chilling, and now I just got put onto A$AP Rocky and Kid Cudi. This album, I mean, Cole is serious about storytelling, and so he focuses more on the idea of like his legacy, his fatherhood, you know, the systematic injustice, and so he takes somewhat of a different approach on this one. And I do appreciate that, but it's still emotional and like cinematic. It rewards you for listening to it and really understanding what the album has to say, which I like. I mean, you have some fun songs in here, and he does break it up with like Neighbors and stuff like that. But this one, I mean, you're really going into this one for like the rhythm and the production work that J. Cole, you know, signaturely puts on all of his albums.
Yeah, and also some of the production, it does switch up, but it doesn't like disrupt the flow of this at all. I just really love how seamless of a listen this is. And it only being 44 minutes long and not having any features listed, obviously there are a lot of backing vocals and a lot of contributions from other people, but I really do love this. This gets really, really introspective. Again, the whole fatherhood idea of this album is really nice because it's his way of stepping back and really looking into what makes life worth living. It's not about the career. It's not about the fame. And he's always kind of been about that, but he really drives it home with this. And this gets really introspective. I just love it. I love it a lot. And I hadn't really paid much attention to this album until maybe a little bit ago, but Change, Folding Clothes, Immortal, For Your Eyes Only, the title track itself, amazing. I really don't have that many complaints about this album. And that's what's so frustrating about us ranking these later, because it's just going to be a toss-up. And it really won't matter because there are so many great albums in his catalog.
So I totally agree. It's really hard to rank these albums, especially because, you know, most of them, you have this idea that, you know, it's so cohesive. It shares this idea, this thought, and all of them are very similar in the sense that it's playing off of like J. Cole doesn't really have this ego that most artists do. He's a contrast. He's a juxtaposition to the label, to the you know, the background of being a rapper. You hear about most artists, you know, what they are actually like when you meet them in person, and like
J. Cole riding his bike everywhere he goes.
Yeah, it's one of the things that you hear. But I love this album, but we got to move on. 2018, we got a crazy album.
We get into KOD.
Yeah, KOD.
I did not like the stripped back production on a lot of these songs. It's very repetitive in a lot of the choruses and not much stuck. I'm going to be very honest. And it's really unfortunate because 2018 was a huge year for music, and this would have only made it bigger. But I don't know. I think this is the one instance where I'm not really going back to this part of his catalog, and it's unfortunate, but I think a lot of the inspirations for it and behind it are really nice. And obviously it's not to glorify drugs, even though a lot of it is about drugs and kind of how, you know, it transforms who you are and makes you into like this version of yourself that you really shouldn't fall back on. But I feel like there could have been so much more here. I really do.
I mean, initial thoughts about this album. You take a look at just the cover art alone. You could tell something's up. This album's different, you know. And what is J. Cole doing in this one? Well, he's taking a different approach. He talks a lot about ego. He talks a lot about his, you know, self-respect, choosing peace. But what KOD does differently and, you know, isn't really respected by fans is it's bold, it's sharp, but it feels intentionally uncomfortable. And for the average listen, it's not really it's powerful. It's very powerful. But, you know, a lot of artists aren't, or a lot of fans aren't going to subject themselves to this uncomfortable, you know, album because of, you know, what J. Cole's trying to say. Like, love it for the message. J. Cole's a great person in what he's trying to say and what he's changing in the industry. But for 2018, you know, this listen is just, it's different. It's different.
And I will note, kind of like what you're saying, like you can get addicted on fame, addicted on drugs, addicted on money. The different titles are Kids on Drugs, King Overdosed and Kill Our Demons, which is really cool because there are a lot of different meanings you could take away from this album. But again, I think the message going for it was great. I think the actual attempt is a little lackluster. And also to note, this was also a surprise release. So it's like usually when an artist does that, they have something following it or they have something right before it. And there was a gap in time from him releasing studio albums in this time period. So I don't know. The outro is called 1985, the intro to the Fall Off. And this is back in 2018, so keep that in mind. So he's, again, still putting emphasis on this eventual album that we had not much of an idea of back in the day.
Yeah. I mean, he is so good about, actually hyping up an album, except for KOD, which he just releases out of the blue.
2021, what a big year, especially for Lil Baby. I just want to shout that out. But The Off Season by J. Cole, and having that surprise feature initially with Lil Baby on this album was amazing. And one of my favorite moments in J. Cole's catalog. And with that, having so many of these bigger rappers on this album and the influences that they bring with this is so cool. You have a lot of the people signed to Dreamville on here as well as features. So I think it's really cool seeing that influence and a lot of that newer sound that J. Cole's going for, and it works. It works so well. Stylistically, the cover itself is really, really cool. I think it's him kind of stepping back, but also realizing where he's at in his career, and he's confident. And it's really nice. The intro itself, 95 South, amazing. It's a banger. I always go back to that. I love this. This is honestly a prelude to the Fall Off, considering the title itself, but also a lot of the energy he's going for, and really him making a statement in his dominance and rapping ability and also the production work intertwined with that. And it's a really fun moment. It really is.
Yeah, I gotta say, one of the things that you kept referring back to is his confidence. He's a veteran at this point. Like, he knows what he's doing. So every bar, every line that he's doing, he's putting just a little bit more energy into. And so lyrically, it's crazy. But he's also showing this level of like dominance while he's restraining himself. I think J. Cole could do a lot. It's still like a reflection on his life, and he's still like playing into humanity, like his human nature on this side. And so he has something to prove. Again, he's going to that next bar, and I think it was a good turnaround from KOD. I had 95 South in my top 3. I had My Life and Let Go of My Hand. I just wanted to say that every bar was sharp, and it had this controlled energy about it. I think for his discography, this one is more of the side of his technical skill, but, most importantly, it's his lyrical dominance. He's really showing that in the age of 2021, when you got so many people that are, throwing out some crazy bars and doing all this, like, crazy over-the-top stuff, J. Cole is still in the scene. He's still top 3, I would like to say, and he's in this big 3, and so he proves it to a certain extent, but he controls himself.
But yeah, no, and just to mention some of my favorites, 95 South, Amari, My Life, Prize the Devil with Lil Baby. Just a shout out again. I don't know. I think it's one of my favorite features by him. And then finally, moving to 2024, in the midst of the Big 3 beef, we have Might Delete Later. This was a really random album, honestly, because there were some videos leading up to it, kind of the tapes, showcasing the works with this album. But honestly, it doesn't really feel like that strong of a mainstay. And the biggest song on here would have been is 7 Minute Drill, and that was aimed at Kendrick and talking about the beef and everything. But then he took it off, and then he apologized for it, and then he kind of stepped back from the scene to let Drake and Kendrick finish whatever they're getting at. But basically, more of a mixtape feel album for sure. I will say Crocodile Tears, Fever, and I'd say Trey the Truth and Ibiza are some of my favorites, but again, not very notable in my opinion.
I would have it, if we're ranking anything like this, as an honorable mention, because like you said, it just feels like more of a mixtape.
Yeah.
So I don't really have much to say about it. Ranking J. Cole's albums, a little difficult, but here's my list. Honorable mention, Might Delete Later. It felt more like a mixtape, so not really much I can say. But starting at my number 6 spot, we got Cole's World, The Sideline Story.
That's stupid. You don't need to put it that low. You don't need to do that. There's so much material on this. You don't need to put it that low.
It's his iconic. I mean, he's getting into his signature style, but it's his first album. It's not in detailed enough. It's not J. Cole's signature style that he would later adapt. It's his first ever album. What do you mean it's not 6?
What's your 5?
Fine. 5, I got KOD, and I know you will agree that it should be on the bottom of this list, but
I have no complaints with that. It should have been lower.
I got Born Sinner in my 4th spot, which is kind of crazy. I really like this album. Really conflicted and defiant.
There's so much material on here. I feel like you're overlooking how much is within this because you have so much refined sound from him from 2011 and then going into this album. I feel like you're really overlooking this.
I'm not overlooking it. I loved every second of every minute, every hour. J. Cole's sound is so good.
All right, go.
It's a top 6 list. I have to.
Keep going.
Keep going. Number 3, I got the Off Season. It's iconic. I love it. I would say lyrically, this is the strongest album. For Your Eyes Only, in my number 2.
That's fine, I guess. I don't know how to feel about that yet.
It's so intimate. His life story. It's very emotional. It takes this approach on fatherhood that I actually appreciated, and it's one of those albums where if you understand the lyrics.
My thing is that I love when there's a lot of energy within songs, so I feel like Born Sinner is something I gravitate to more.
Getting into my number 1 spot, we got Forest Hill Drive. Who could have saw that one? You're telling me the most popular album's my number 1?
For a good reason.
Yeah, it's for a good reason. That thing at the end of the day, he's like, I made this. And everyone's like, what? No way. It's so cohesive. I don't think this is like out of all of the albums in his discography, this is the one where it's like, this could be a no skip.
But I will say, I think The Fall Off might top it. A decade worth of working on an album has got to lead up to something monumentous.
It's gonna get canceled. It's gonna get pushed back. He's gonna turn into Kanye. He's gonna say something online. Something's gonna happen.
Moving on to my J. Cole studio album ranking. Honorable mention, might delete later. Last place we have KOD. Doesn't fit with his sound. It's very stripped back. Next we have For Your Eyes Only, and I have this low only because I feel like a lot of these songs, yes, they do have a lot of depth in them, but I feel like I love hearing that hunger, that energy from him. And I feel like we don't get enough of that on this album.
What the heck? How is that your number 5?
Again, I love everything else he's got going for him even more than this. And I think that this album is nearly perfect. That's the problem. Number 4, we have Sideline Story. I love how much energy he puts into this. I love everything going for it. You have all the features contribute so much to this. You have the drive, the hunger from J. Cole in his early years, right after his mixtape era, just because of how big of a statement this was for him.
He doesn't know the formula quite yet, and so
that's why everything going for it is so good because there's so much different. The production varies so much in some of these songs too. The hooks, the catchiness that you get on this album, the big name features that he already has on this with Rock Nation, by the way.
I think for J. Cole, this is like a good quote unquote underdog story with his rookie energy. I mean, it's just his initial voice and everything.
Okay, you're saying his voice is the problem?
No, I'm saying it's his initial imprint.
So you're saying
in the industry.
This isn't a mature enough moment in his catalog for it to be that high, you're saying?
He would go on to do so much better because of this album and what he learned off this one.
My number 3 pick is The Off Season. I love everything going for it. I really do. Number 2, I have Born Sinner. I can't believe you put it that low in your list, but this album is something I go back to all the time now. And then finally, I do have 2014 Forest Hills Drive as my number 1 pick.
The GOAT!
Yeah,
the GOAT!
By far. But The Fall Off will be topping it on February 6th, and we're going to be doing our own reaction to it or a review. It's going to be a great time. Our top 5 J. Cole song draft. Lucas, you go first.
This is very difficult. I will tell you for me. No Role Models is an easy one off of Forest Hill Drive.
Okay. I'll go Love Yours from Forest Hill Drive.
Okay. I see you. I like that for your number 1. For my number 2, I'm going to go Change.
Wow.
Off of For Your Eyes Only.
Oh, no. Number 2, I'll go Cold World from Sideline Story. We're throwing a banger in the mix.
Because my next one's 95 South.
You're kidding me. Oh, my freaking goodness. Okay, I was going to pick that as my 3rd. All right, instead, I'll go with Crooked Smile for my number 3 from Born Sinner.
Okay, that's a good one. My number 4, Power Trip.
There you go. I'm going to be going with Change for Your Eyes Only.
What the heck?
I have to.
For my number 5, I'm gonna kick it back to the original, and I'm gonna go Lights Please.
For my number 5, I'm gonna go Apparently from 2014 Forest Hills Drive. You've heard it from us. We've been the Weekly Wrap. Thank you for tuning in to our first official vodcast here in Studio 8A at Franklin Hall at IU Bloomington. It's been a pleasure doing this. We're very excited for the fall off. If you enjoyed what you've seen, you can follow us on our Instagram, our TikTok, our Spotify page where we upload our podcast episodes. Make sure to tune into the Weekly Wrap on Mondays, 4 to 5 p.m. on WIOX 99.1 LP. It's been a pleasure with you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in.
I don't think